Here's an introduction to the TheXR.space software stack and how a developer could get set up. So the software stack, just clone the repository and look at the folders here in the left panel. It is a Phoenix is a web framework. So it's a Phoenix web framework, and then the folder structure is created by the Phoenix new command. And the files here are mostly Elixir. So Elixir is the language. You can look at that. It's based off of Erlang, which allows us to do processes, and we'll cover that in a future video. But the web framework gives us the typical things like controllers, routing, and WebSockets. So we'll use this for communication. And within the web framework, we still use JavaScript, so all the JavaScript is in an assets folder. That's over here. And here's where we have the front end stuff. So assets, JavaScript folder, and here we will find all the stuff that we render in the front end for the virtual reality, which we depend heavily on Babylon.js. So you can look at that. And so most of the JavaScript is really a wrapper around Babylon.js to make it easier to communicate through WebSockets and build entities, components, systems, etc. So after you've cloned the repository, take a look at the README file. So there's a README file. And previously, I had a Docker file set up in here so that when you opened it, VS Code would detect this folder, and then it would ask if you want to create a Docker development container. And if you did so, it was sort of self-contained, but I sort of moved away from this, and it hasn't been maintained in a while because I wasn't able to start the observer, which is an Elixir command to be able to observe the processes. And I also couldn't open up things in Xterm like Cypress or another browser because I was developing on a Windows subsystems for Linux. And anyway, now I'm just doing it the traditional way, which is to install Elixir directly on my computer. I'm using a Mac, so you can install Elixir using brew. Then you'll need some kind of node. I'm using Node Version Manager, and then you can go into the assets folder where there is a package JSON, so you can do npm install, and you'll need a Postgres database. So there is a Docker Compose file at the root level, which creates a Postgres database. So you just do Docker Compose up and daemonize that in the background, so you'll just have that running. Then you can run the server using this command, which this is just a bash script, which if you look at that, where is it? Server. It imports some variables to make these available, but the command that it's running is IEX, which is the interactive Erlang or Elixir, starting the Phoenix server. So it does expect a .env file, which here's a sample, and this is just injecting some keys and secrets into the environment so that we can use them for different things. This is a bit legacy. There was a time when I was connecting to AWS to write things into S3, and I've right now deprecated that, so I don't think you need any of these values. Agora is used for the real-time WebRTC audio chat, and Honey Badger is used for exception notification. So if you just fill in any values for these, I think it would be good enough for local development. It probably, unless you're testing the voice, you don't really need an account, but you can sign up for a free account at agora.io. So create that file. So I think I'm missing, we need to create a .m file, c.m sample, and then you'll be able to start server. But before that, I think you need to run mix ecto setup creates the database, and this will run database create and also run your migrations, which are inside priv, repo, migrations, and similar to Rails and other frameworks, this will create some tables. So you can look at the tables that we're creating. More or less, we have a spaces table that has an ID, and an entities table which has an ID and then some a map of components. So that's the data that's in a space. And we'll cover that in more detail in the future. But so I've already done that. I've created my database, so I can run server. This will boot up the interactive Elixir IEX session. So here's a prompt, and it has some watchers on it, so it's constantly watching for file changes and compiling the JavaScript as well as all the Elixir stuff. But the server is started on port 4000, so now I can go to localhost port 4000. Let's load this page, and we should see a welcome screen, and I'll be able to create a new space. Hello. Enter the space, and there we are. So you should be able to drag, move around, and that's how you get your dev environment set up.